So what I want to do for the next few minutes is spend a little time explaining to you how they accomplished what they accomplished. And that'll give you a little preview of what's coming for you. And before I do, I just want to say one thing. I hope that you understand that being part of the HILL process is not doing something on top of whatever you're already doing to improve student outcomes and improve literacy in particular. It's about doing what you're already doing in a way that is supported by some of the best leadership and literacy practices. In other words, it's about refining and taking what you're already doing to the next level so that you can have the same kind of impact. So when we look at what Cohort A accomplished, one of the things we know, the first reason they got the results they got, is that they came to the work with authenticity and courage. In other words, they very quickly accepted the opportunity and the challenge to take a good deep look at their current state of literacy success and school support for literacy success right in the beginning. And what they found was that, yes, literacy success was happening for some students, but not all. That good literacy practices, even some of the best literacy practices, were happening in some classrooms, some of the time, but not all classrooms, all of the time. And sometimes the right leadership and culture and environment of support were happening in a very focused way around literacy success. And sometimes those resources of leadership and support were getting distracted or disconnected from literacy success. Then they had the courage to envision a desired state that they wanted to grow into, where literacy success would be there for all students, regardless of circumstances, that best literacy practices would be happening in all classrooms every day for all students. And I think that's one of the commitments I want to lift up, because as we get really into this conversation that has been circling around us as we were closing out this school year, what we know is that we really have to have deeper conversations about equity. And one way that we achieve equity is making sure that the best teaching and learning practices are happening every day in every classroom in a way that brings equal and equitable opportunity to all students for learning and success. And then the other piece to this is the ability to have sustained leadership and not rest on just expecting one or two people to carry the leadership ball, but everybody shared in a culture of shared responsibility and support, so that leadership is distributed throughout the school. So they have been working on all of these things on the right side ever since they started, and they've made great gains. Second reason they've been successful is they really dug into the essential literacy practices. They worked with the learning modules, they unpacked the literacy practices, one or two practices at a time. They really committed to implementing one or two practices really well in the first cycle of their renewal process. And they were so committed that they built into their plan of working together, monitoring in real time, watching themselves in their own classrooms and watching themselves try to get to a level where that practice or those one or two practices are being implemented every day in every classroom in a way that adheres to what we call the gold standard. The other thing that we know about the work that we're doing with you, and we hope you'll really appreciate, is the third reason I think they had so much success. And we call that balanced implementation. The literacy essentials give us a clear picture of what it looks like if you're implementing a practice with fidelity. And we have made sure that we understand that picture by developing what we call gold standard teacher behaviors. But at the same time, every school is different. Every school has different literacy resources. Every school has different children. And so one of the things they worked on to achieve success for their own school was to make sure that they implement those fidelity behaviors for each literacy practice in a way that fits their school. And we call that integrity of implementation. It's a very, very strong piece of the work we're going to do with you, is to make sure that we don't put you in a position where we're imposing something that's a one size fits all, and that you have the ability to take very specific literacy practices and the gold standard behaviors that go with them and implement them in a way that fits your resources and your students. And when you do that, we know that you're going to own the implementation and it will be more sustainable. So that's secret number 3 for their success. Secret number 4 for their success is that we worked on change in a little bit different way than is typical in most school improvement processes. We worked on change through a positive, appreciative, growth-focused, strengths-based approach. We didn't talk about problems and things that are going wrong. We talked about assets, strengths to build on, and opportunities for growth. We didn't put people on the spot as each person being individual and to carry the ball all by themselves. Instead, they embraced the idea of collective ownership, which is the bottom quarter here of this picture, and worked so that they could share the leadership of the responsibility across their schools. They built a lot of trust within the school community and between the school community and the students and parents. And they worked interdependently so that it's not a competition to keep getting better and better, but a getting better and better collectively. And then when they started to work with actual data to help them understand where they were with literacy development, they dug deep into evidence-based decisions with a very robust process of inquiry called SOAR, where we look at strengths first and then opportunities. They identified priority areas to focus on for growth, just a couple, not grow everywhere in all directions at once, but just a few targeted areas. And then they set up a way to progress monitor in real time with current data so that week to week, month to month, they knew exactly where they were with their implementation goals. And finally, to make all of this work, they really embraced the idea of going into what we call the learning zone and staying there and using the opportunities to be reflective about how things are going, to think systemically and focus on aligning effort, and then be respectful about adult learning so that every adult gets to learn in a space of safety and support. That's the 4th reason they were successful. The 5th reason is that we have a very adaptive cycle for change, and they worked through the first cycle focusing on 1 or 2 priority growth targets or particular areas of student achievement and classroom practice. And then they aligned all their effort throughout the process to support those 1 or 2 targeted areas, to monitor their growth in real time. And now they're at the point where they get to celebrate what they've accomplished. So the cycle is wonderful as a resource because it works nicely along with the state school improvement process, but it comes at it through a very positive, appreciative framework.